What were the timelines, the incidents, the accidents, the definitions of your life as you've come along over the years, and you look back at it and you try to figure out what really has shaped me? How come I am the way I am? What really was the pivot point in my early years? I'm going to share that with you. I don't often talk much about myself personally, but I've got 3 brief stories for you today, and I'm going to share 1 or 2 of them in the first segment of our show and 1 or 2 in the back end of the show. So I'll begin right now, ladies and gentlemen. When I was 18, 19, I was a farm boy over in central Iowa, and like many young people at that age and that era, I was involved with 4-H. I pledged my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to greater service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world. All right? So I was a 4-H'er, and I believed in it, and I was very involved with agricultural. I raised cattle and so on. Well, at any rate, as I was getting older there, about 18, 19, I was elected president of the state 4-H organization. I think there was maybe 20,000 4-H kids around the state of Iowa at that time, and I was fortunate to be elected into a position as the president for 1 year of the Iowa 4-H organization. And but what's interesting about this is that one day I got a call from Iowa State University, which is very involved as a land-grant college. They're involved with 4-H. And they said, we'd like you to go to a conference, kind of represent Iowa, go to a conference in Washington, D.C. And I said, sure, hey, it sounds exciting. I've never flown before. So I jumped right into that opportunity. Again, this would have been early 1970, approximately, and that's actually significant. Anyway, so I got to Washington, D.C., and I was getting deplaned there, kind of walking off. I'd never been in D.C., of course. And an adult came up to me, a gentleman in a suit, and said, hey, you're going to give a speech tomorrow to Secretary of Agriculture, and good luck on that. Take care. Bye-bye. Right? Clifford Hardin, by the way, was the Secretary of Culture or Secretary of Agriculture at that time, and he came from Nebraska, ironically, but I didn't know any of that at the time. So I thought, I had all night long to think about it. I didn't know what I was going to say at all. The next day, there were about 250 young people sitting at an auditorium. There was a podium kind of up there in front of the group of kids, all of them 17, 18, 19 years of age. And out strides Secretary of Agriculture Clifford Hardin. There he is, very sober, very serious, dressed almost entirely in black, very conservative-looking man, didn't smile, didn't wave. He just came in, looked at all of us, and sat down. So then it was my turn to step up, and I had thought a little bit about what I was going to say, of course. And I said, Mr. Secretary, I strode up, I was nervous, of course, at the podium. Everybody was listening to me. I had no idea what I was going to say. And I said, Mr. Secretary, when I'm on the farm with my family, it's a very abundant environment. There's no problem. It's very peaceful. We have cattle out there, we have sheep, we have hogs, there's no problem with food, we have plenty to eat. It's generally a pretty happy and peaceful environment. But when my family and I sit down for dinner in the evening and we watch TV while we're eating, of course, and what I've seen was this brutal, violent demonstrations, tear gas, a lot of black people being hit over the head, screaming, fighting, tussling. I couldn't believe it. I've never seen anything like that in my life, of course, given the environment that I grew up in. And I said, is there some way, what I'm wondering about is many of these people are grown up, they're adults. Where are their children right now, Mr. Secretary? Are they sitting at home watching their parents getting beat over the head by the police there in Chicago? I just can't believe it. I got to think that there's a better way. Isn't there something that 4-H could do for these people and these youngsters in particular? And there was some applause. That's all I said. It was pretty short. And I didn't think a lot of it, by the way. It just seemed like a common sense consideration. And so I went and sat down, and that was it. And we flew back from Washington, D.C., back to Iowa in that particular case. And I didn't really think too much about it. 2 weeks later, the secretary's assistant, I guess, called Iowa State University, because 4-H was linked to Iowa State University in the state of Iowa, and said, well, Mr. Secretary would like to experiment with that idea that young man brought up there at the conference a couple of weeks ago. He'd like to experiment with it and see maybe what could happen. So that was interesting. So I got a phone call from a wonderful man who's passed away by now, of course, but he was the head of the 4-H program in the state of Iowa at that time. And he called me and said, come to Ames, let's talk. So this man, I'd never had a conversation like this before. I walked with him all over Iowa State University. It's a beautiful campus and lots of rolling hills and lots of different things. But he kept talking to me about what we were just really talking about doing right here, because this would be possibly never done before, bringing 4-H into not just a black environment, but really a minority downscale environment, a rough environment. And he said, I just want to know that you're totally comfortable with this. And I said, yeah, no problem. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. And I don't have anything going on this summer. And then when fall comes, I'll go to Drake University, and that'll be the end of it. But it should be interesting. And so, yes, put me down. I'll do that. And so I found out a way to kind of rent a little apartment there with a couple other guys, and they put me in the basement of a Baptist church in a minority neighborhood, an urban area right there. It was a very nice church, but it had been around for many years. It had a basketball court adjacent to this church. So every day, what I would do, my job was to go out and recruit children from that neighborhood, basically black kids, and get them involved in 4-H and get them off the streets, so to speak. And there were a lot of them on the streets. They weren't in school. So we'd play basketball adjacent to the Baptist church, and we would warm up and get to be comfortable with them and hanging out, laughing and so on. Then they'd come down to the basement of this church, and they would agree to be part of and adhere to the rules and regulations of 4-H. And I would give them that mantra, and they would follow everything. They thought it was kind of fun and interesting to be part of something like this. We started a gardening club. We started a bicycle safety club. I think there was a third one that I can't remember right now. But these are the activities that we did, and anybody who's involved with 4-H would go, sure, that's average. That's normal. All right, so we did that all through the year. I got about maybe 30 kids from the neighborhood over the course of the summer. And then I went to college, and I forgot about the whole project. 40 years later, 40 years later, I get a phone call from a guy named Lynn Henderson over in Iowa. And he said, hey, Lynn, he said, I sit on the National Board of Directors for 4-H. We're giving you a call. We're doing some strategic planning and counting on. And he said, Lynn, you got that thing started in 1970. It's now been 40 years. And he said, Lynn, he says, 38 million young urban children are now 4-Hers as a result of you getting this thing started. It spread through all 50 states over the years. And today we have 38 million black children from urban neighborhoods. And they're interacting with lots of white kids, doing all kinds of projects, just like 4-Hers always did and always will. And he said, so we're proud of the fact that we're a fully integrated, racially diverse organization, and it's all because of you and your vision, and you got the thing started, and thank you so much for doing that. Goodbye. Take care. Good job. And I stood there, and I had no idea what to do. The phone dropped from my hands. I fell back on my chair because I didn't expect a call from him. I didn't know anybody was doing anything with this project. None. It was an incredible moment. And I realized it took me a while to really absorb the implications of what he had told me. Now, as we go further ahead now, we're going to jump ahead another 20, 30, 40 years right now to 2026. And there's a lot of discussion, obviously, about diversity and office situations, rules, and so on. But the fact of the matter is, that was a first. I didn't know it was a first. I didn't think much about that. It just did what it seemed appropriate to do at the time. But here's the key idea. If you're a young person or you know somebody who's a young person who can stand up in front of somebody and make an observation, a fearless observation of what is happening in our country and how we all want to be happier, better, and so on and so forth. This incredible moment, this incredible wave of people that have impacted millions of children, who are now, by the way, many of them in their 50s and 60s. So that's the very first of 3 stories I'm going to tell you today, and I appreciate you tuning in. That is an exciting moment. Many people are saying, how come I didn't know about that? I had no idea. Nobody has written a book about it. Nobody has written a press release about it. That's going to change now. So keep your eyes open for that. That is a first step forward insofar as racial equality is concerned. Thank you so much for paying attention right now to the first portion of WowBiz Nebraska. We do all kinds of interesting things. When you get back, after I talk about the promotional sponsor, Dynamite organization doing dynamite things, so please don't leave. But we'll talk about some cool stuff, including a phrase called never eat alone. Never eat alone. That's right. Now, what could that be? And how does that relate to the restaurant industry right now, where we're at? Everybody taking everything out, taking it home, and so on. What are the implications of that to restaurateurs, consumers, and all the vendors and middlemen? I don't know. We'll talk to you very soon about that very strategic issue. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. WowBiz Nebraska is brought to you by Charisma Coaching, a fascinating organization that is essential to your success. I may have to stick my neck all the way out and say what they are dealing with, which is primarily energy and the ability to differentiate yourself from other people, but do that in a way that isn't, ungainly or awkward or off base or anything like that. But when we're talking now about people that simply have the ability to attract positive attention, and then when they sit down and talk with people, they're articulate, see? And this is something a lot of people go, I don't know if I can be articulate. You've got to be articulate. You have to be able to have a conversation and use, the right verbiage. I'm not saying you have to talk above people or below them or whatever, but nevertheless, you have to come off as an intelligent person that understands what they're saying, but then can restate it in a way where they go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say there, right? So I've just mentioned several things, right? Your ability to listen carefully and reiterate what you're hearing and seeing and doing it in a way that makes people proud of what they said and they like the vibe of the conversation. Now that's very important, but there's a lot more. You've got to dress in a way that people feel like that's smart. That'd be the word I would use. Smart, fashionable, not gaudy or somebody who's working too hard, but you can be fashionable if you're the kind of person who's comfortable standing out. Just the other day, I wore a hat, a man's dress hat the other day, and it worked beautifully, and people were like, love that hat. That's right. So check out Charisma Coaching. You'll enjoy it. You'll appreciate it. You'll become a new man or woman as a result of the Charisma Coaching. Have you ever wondered where the value menu, Taco Bell's value menu, came from? It'd be a reasonable thing to think about because you look at there are value menus everywhere in all the fast food chains, and they're changing the prices all the time. McDonald's is doing it, everything. And you're wondering, where did this idea come up? And by the way, it's so relevant now, of course, because of the economy and inflation and so on. So value menus are pretty important. They're on point. Let me tell you what happened with that. In 1987, a Taco Bell franchisee in Lawton, Oklahoma, as well as in Wichita Falls, he had 2 stores, and he wasn't doing well. I happened to work for a large ad agency in Dallas at the time, and the Taco Bell restaurants were my responsibility at that time. We're talking about 87 right now. So I went up to see him, and he said, I'm really frightened. I'm going to have to close down these stores because I'm competing with these Mexican restaurants, and they're always family, you know, and then they have the kids in there. They don't have to pay them anything, so they get profitability, and they're really beating me to the punch in every possible way. I don't know what to do. He said, but I said, wow, that's a tough thing. You're competing against a family that doesn't pay its children. Yeah, he says, it's very tough. He said, however, I did learn from a guy in New Orleans, and he lowered the price of I think it was just tacos, of tacos to 49 cents on Sundays. And all the Hispanics in New Orleans came to Taco Bell at that time because they loved the price. And so he was very, very busy on Sundays. And of course, once again, 49 cents. And so I said, and a bunch of people that I was working for and with and so on said, maybe we should take that and run with it. He said, yeah, let's do that. And let's come up with other, like a bean burrito, that'd be another inexpensive item. Various items, about 6 of them, and call it a value menu. Well, they'll all be 49 cents, just those things. I said, great idea. It's very courageous. I love it. All right. So we went back to Dallas, and we spent a couple weeks designing window clings and napkin holders, all kinds of different things that have this price point and the word value menu and so on. It's right there. Now, we got them all shipped off, and they're applied to the outsides of the restaurant. This would be in Lawton, Oklahoma again, and in Wichita Falls, Texas. So, and of course, we had radio ads as well. So we did all that, put all that in place, and then we just sat up in Dallas and waited and waited and waited. And finally, I had to pick up the phone after 3 weeks and say, what's going on? How's it going? He said, you're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you. He said, sales are up 60%. And he says, we're serving lunch to the military. See, a lot of military bases in that area, and a lot of them are retirees, and so they try to watch their money carefully. So they'll go for lunch and dinner at their local Taco Bell and have a 49-cent taco or bean burrito. Well, wow, right? Think about this for a minute. This is a store that had failed. It was not doing well. They were thinking about closing it. Suddenly it became an explosion, a sales explosion. And we had to drive over there and so on, check it all out. And now we got people in the Taco Bell system, franchisees, and they're calling us. What's going on down there with him, huh? Maybe we should do that too. What do you think, huh? Could you come up here and get us going? Yeah. So I spent the next 2.5 years driving around or flying around to all these franchisee places and explaining to them what the dynamics were. Along the way, by the way, the price went from 49 to 59 cents, right? Eventually it went to 69 cents. You might know about all that if you can think carefully. But the bottom line is a lot of these franchisees were nervous. He said, we're making a good profit right now. And you want me to cut the profit of all these items, these basic items that we sell every day? Boy, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure, you know. And we say, we've got some outstanding advertising. They're going to drive them into the store. They're going to see this low price value menu. They're going to start coming back, talking to people. This is how it's going to go down. Okay. Then I have to go on to Colorado and all over the United States to pitch it just like this with a lot of analysis and so on. Well, anyway, long story short, the business, this change, this strategic change generated over $1 billion in incremental sales. In other words, it wasn't the whole base, it was that much more money on top of the entire corporation's current revenue, sales revenue. Well, anyway, that was something else, and we started to get trade magazines calling us and different papers. They said, this is the most dramatic, I'm gonna clear my throat now. This is the most dramatic turnaround in the history of fast food right now with Taco Bell. I said, oh man, I don't know what to say. That's great. Well, anyway, time went on. My wife and I decided to return from California back to Omaha, Nebraska for a variety of family reasons. Well, anyway, so there was a going away party. Now, I want you to hear me carefully at this moment going forward, because this is the essence of what I came here to share. So my company set up a going away party out on the beach, Manhattan Beach, beautiful restaurant and sand and the ocean and the coming in off the Pacific. It was just beautiful environment. And we're all hanging out and laughing and giggling and stuff. And in come 3 executives, very executive looking people with suits on and wingtips. Remember that? And they came in and they went directly to me. They found me sitting near the bar, I guess I was, and they said, let's take a walk. This is how they talked to me. I said, okay. So there we go, right? I'm with these 3 gentlemen. And we walk out onto the sandy beach. And they're kind of beside me. And nobody said a thing. I thought this was very odd. And so we walked out and we walked and we walked. We were about halfway towards the ocean, right? We were really far away from the restaurant. And we could hear and see the waves coming up. It was just gorgeous. You can smell the ocean, you know. And suddenly they circled around me. And they said, Lynn, we wanted to fly here from Purchase, New York, that's way out in New York State, to thank you for generating over $1 billion for PepsiCo. We deeply appreciate it. And we want you to know that we would have never allowed the price reduction to occur if anybody had called us at headquarters, right? PepsiCo's headquarters. We would have never allowed that. We would never have allowed all the different marketing messages and so on and so forth. They weren't on our table. We didn't know about that. We didn't allow, there's a lot of things we wouldn't have allowed. But you, and I'm saying this as closely to exactly as they said it, they said you saw something we didn't see. And you moved ahead in a way that we would have never moved ahead. We would have done research and taken a lot of time. You were out there within two weeks. But most importantly, Lynn, when you go back to Nebraska, we want you to look for companies that think they have their act together, but they, like we did, but they really don't, like we didn't. And then, Lynn, do what only you can do. Do what only you can do. Thanks very much. We appreciate it. Great job. Goodbye. And they strided off the beach and left me standing there on the beach by myself, trying to absorb this, right? The implications of what they said, right? And obviously it's a very flattering thing, but it seemed like it was more than that, you see. That phrase, do what only you can do, became part of my mindset. It was in my heart, not just my head, you know. And it occurred to me that all of us, everybody, needs to figure out how they can do what only they can do. Obviously, I don't need to restate this again and again, but I'd never considered that. I never thought about that. At the time, I wasn't occurred thinking about it in that way. But it felt to me like they were sharing some inside mystical insight that was being given to me, some kind of a maybe gold or silver or something like that, because it seemed so powerful and relevant and something that wasn't just going to go away or anything. It was there with me forever. That's what occurred to me at the time, and honestly, I kind of think it's still with me. And that's how I opened the show here today. I challenged you. I asked you, what moments have occurred and unfold in your life, early in your life, maybe, could be even when you're an infant. I don't know, but out of that came this wisdom, this insight. All you have to do, don't worry about anything else. Just do what you're here to do. This is your thing, whatever it is. Do your thing. Whether it makes a lot of money or impresses anybody is not really the point. everything will turn out fine. That was how these guys were coming across. As long as you know you're doing the right thing, don't worry about whoever's smarter than you, has got more academic credentials, bigger company, more money, whatever it is. That may not be what you should be doing. Do it only you, right? And people will come to you. People will come to you and say, it seems like you're really good at this or that, and I don't even know what that means, and I'm wondering if you could share that with me or something like that. Help me dive into that pond. That's right. So here we are, WowBiz Nebraska. I appreciate you watching our show. We're doing lots of wonderful things. You're going to be able to be a better human being as well as drive a better company forward in this confusing and interesting era. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.